From the Ticats Audio Network, this is Tiger Cats Game Day with Courtney Stephen and Mike Daly.
Welcome to Tiger Cats Game Day on the Ticats Audio Network. My name is Courtney Stephen, as always joined by the incomparable Mike Daly. Mike, we are at home in Tim Hortons Field for the last home game of the regular season. The Ticats are hosting the Ottawa Redblacks from the nation's capital, who are hobbling in to the 905 for what is actually going to be one of the most important games of the season. This is also the Made in the Hammer game. So the Ticats won't be donning their typical black and gold at home, but they will be wearing the steel gray that is Made in the Hammer. It is shaping up to be a beautiful night, Mike. What's on the line tonight?
Well, really everything in front of Hamilton is on the line. The playoff hopes, the playoff dreams, whatever you want to talk about. And we talked about this last week, but really, they win. They just got to win out and not worry about another thing, which is a perfect position to be in, isn't it? Like, as a competitor, as somebody playing this game, when all you hear is, okay, listen, you just got to win 2 games and you're in the playoffs. That's the easiest thing to do. Maybe not the easiest thing to win, right? It's never easy to win, but it's the easiest thing to wrap your mind around. So, it's pretty exciting to be a Ticat fan right now because, Courtney, it was gloom, whatever you want to call it, for a little bit in this season. And now to get into this moment where it's that playoff push, and it feels like that playoff atmosphere back at Tim Hortons Field, man, it really doesn't get any better than that,
Man, and there is one playoff spot in the entire CFL up for grabs. Is going to be either the Ticats, Ottawa, or the Saskatchewan Roughriders. So you can bet that the people of the Eastern Division, they will be watching this, because even if you're in Montreal or you're in Toronto, this game has weight on who you may play in the playoffs. If you're from the West, it's also important. And we know that at the end of the season, sometimes the schedule makes no sense when it first comes out. Why are we playing Ottawa twice at the end of the year? Why is that the way it's lined up? And then it just all makes sense. Suddenly, this is the team, the playoff finals, the final hope, the last-ditch effort to try and make it runs through Ottawa. So it's going to be a great game. I can't wait to see what happens tonight. As always, let's start off by talking about who's up, who's down. And really for the Ticats, the name of the game is consistency, because there's a lot of names that have been in the game, will continue to be in the game. A few people who are back in the lineup. Micah Johnson, he will be back at that nose position or that defensive tackle position where he has been making a name for himself in Hamilton. He's done his thing around the league for a long time, but as a first-year Ticat, he's really contributed, especially in the absence of Dylan Wynn. You got the D ends who've been making noise. Both of these guys have had multi-sack games this year. Julian Hauser and Malik Carney on that D line. And then Simone Lawrence, of course, in his second game back from injury. This defense has always led the way for the Ticats. And with guys like Jovan Santos Knox crossing 100 tackles for the year, and players like Cariel Brooks and specifically Richard Leonard, who was the CFL Performer of the Week last week with 2 picks and 1 for 6. Like, how big is it for this defense to be playing at this level at this point in the season?
Huge. And like, to just have the consistency of who's out there, it is massive, right? Like, to have the 2 ends, Hauser and Carney. I mean, Hauser's pick last in Calgary, like, I've been saying this, he is the best.
That's the coverage D end.
That's what I'm talking about, man. He's the best coverage D end that I've ever seen. And he showed, like, that was an athletic pick, dropping from the line of scrimmage, getting into the throwing lane, and to catch it with his hands, right? Because you got to understand, a lot of these big D linemen, I mean, Courtney, me and you have some pretty messed up fingers, but not like these D linemen, right? These D linemen, their fingers are going each which way. And for him to reach out and snag that thing with his hand, that was such a good play. But to see Micah Johnson back in the lineup is huge. right? Because especially with the absence of Dylan Wynn, to have a guy like him and then Teddy Laurent, who, you know, always does his thing, that's huge for this Ticats defense. And, you know, not just for this Ottawa game, but really for when you get into the playoffs, you know, after, you know, they should take care of Ottawa these next 2 games. But you need that consistency that you're seeing from this Ticats defense to come out. But what I'm interested to see, and I'm interested to get your take on, is this Ticat, because you mentioned, you know, this last playoff spot is up for grabs between Saskatchewan, Ottawa, and the Ticats. If I'm Montreal and Toronto, I'm saying I hope to God Ottawa beats the Ticats. Because really, when you look at it, like, the scariest team of those 3 is usually the one that's getting hot into the playoffs, right? And the Ticats have been showing right now that, you know what, they're kind of gelling and things are looking good for them. Am I wrong?
Well, no, you're absolutely capturing the vibe inside of every other Eastern Division locker room. It's not the same teams that began this season. When you embarked on this 2022 journey, you had a different set of people, maybe slightly, and not because of the names or the numbers, but just because the experience level and their chemistry has changed. Those are different men in that locker room now than started this year. And it's not really about the team that was supposed to do all these things, the team that went to 2 Grey Cups back to back and all the 15-3. That team's gone. That ship has sailed. The team that is in that Hamilton locker room right now is the hottest team in the CFL. Mm-hmm. They have had come from behind victories. They have had dominant performances against the likes of Winnipeg, and they've gone into Saskatchewan, which was a hard place to play earlier in the year, and lost, and then took those learnings and brought it back to their second game against Saskatchewan and made it look like it was easy. You know, so all different kinds of ways of getting it done. Dangerous on special teams, dangerous on defense, and on offense, they're figuring it out how to protect the quarterback and make clutch plays. Not to mention, Seth Small is just like the X factor of all X factors. When you have a kicker who can go 4 for 4, that changes so much. They don't even need to score 2 touchdowns on offense. They average less than 2 touchdowns on offense per game, and yet they're still finding ways to win. And that is a dangerous team to play in the playoffs. I gotta think that regardless, home or away, the Ticats are not a team that anybody is looking forward to face. And talking about all those 3 phases, let's talk about the offense. Stephen Dunbar Jr., Tim White, Lamar Durant, Anthony Johnson, and Tyler Ternowski. Heck of a lineup right there. You've got the league leader in receptions in Tim White. You've got Stephen Dunbar Jr., who's coming in close to 1,000 yards on the season. And then you've got some veteran leadership in Lamar Durant, who's going to be playing out of that Z position. And then you got Ternowski coming into the slot. I really like how Ternowski is playing at this point in the year. He's tough. He plays on special teams. He's a receiver who can tackle. You don't see that every day. But he's tough. He will block. He'll get those wham blocks. He'll chip on the edge. He'll catch those check downs, and then he'll fight for yardage. It just fits with the overall character of this team. What else are you seeing from the Ticats offense?
Yeah, and I think, you know, kind of the big glaring one right now is Wes Hills being out, right? And Don Jackson being in at that starting running back spot. You mentioned it, like, you know, Stephen Dunbar, I think, is 77 yards away from 1,000, right? So that'll be a watch, and I'm sure he'll hit that by the end of this season, right? So Tim White and Stephen Dunbar, they're going to get their yards, they're going to get their targets, they're going to get their catches, right? I think what I'm interested to see is how Don, after a couple of weeks of rest too, right? We know with that running back position, you can get banged up pretty quickly, right? So a couple weeks of rest, we know what Don Jackson can do, whether it's catching out of the backfield, whether it's making those big home run plays. But really what's kind of propelled this Ticats offense forward was by handing the ball off to Wes Hills these past few games. So what I'm curious to see is, you know, do they take the same approach with Don in there, which I think they do, because Don's absolutely capable of doing it, especially with that O-line being, that same group up front and playing as well as they are. That's what I'm very curious to see is, do they hand that ball off to Don, knowing what he can do, and kind of keep that offense rolling the way it is.
No, exactly. And the thing is, Don Jackson played 9 games. He had 272 yards on the ground. Wes Hills played 3 games and had 245. But Wes played in front of that newfangled, shiny, big and strong O-line that the Ticats have been rocking with for the last couple of weeks. So I like to see the combination of Don Jackson, who is a different type runner than Wes Hills. Wes Hills is more of that, I want to run through your face and then I'm going to force you to get on your heels and then I'll hit you with something else. Whereas Don Jackson is just a ball of gunpowder ready to explode through the hole, shake left and right. And then he will finish his runs. But the threat for Don is that he's so explosive and he can change directions like very few people can and then finish the run. It's a great change of pace from what's been on film for the last 3 games. Excited to see Don J back there toting the rock. And I mean, while the Ticats, aside from Wes Hills, who's banged up right now, they've been getting healthier, right? When Dane Evans came back from injury, that was a huge lift. Now Matt Schultz is also back from injury, so they've got a little bit more depth at that position. Just in general, guys getting healthy, Simone coming back, that's been a huge lift for the Ticats. Lawrence Woods III, another huge guy who came back off injury, made an immediate impact. But Ottawa has been trending the other way. They have been getting hurt. There's a lot of key guys who are not playing. And you start on the defense with Abdul Kenna, Patrick Levels. These guys are not playing. On the offense, Jalen Acklin and Powell. On special teams, Deadman. So literally probably their 5 best players, aside from Jeremiah, who's been out the entire year. They're hobbling into this one. So what's the trend like in Ottawa right now? Not just injuries, but what is the season trend for Ottawa coming into this game?
Yeah, it's a tough one to tell, right? Because they've had this like quarterback carousel, and now Nick Arbuckle seems to be the guy that's kind of taken over this past little bit. I do still think they're dangerous in terms of the wide receiver core, right? They have some receivers there that are still playing, like RJ Harris, right? Darvin Adams, Shaq Johnson. Those guys are guys that have made big plays in the CFL over their career. Other people on that team that you look at, right? Like a couple fellow Ticats that were there last year. Lorenzo Malden, who leads the league in quarterback sacks right now, playing out of his mind, right? Playing out of his mind. And then Jackson Bennett to get the start at running back, who I think has been playing very well for the couple starts that he's gotten. So, it's one of those ones where you hear this trap game, right? You hear that saying every once in a while. Ticats have this, really close emotional win. Ottawa has this last minute collapse. Well, maybe not last minute, but second half collapse against Montreal. And it's like that. You get this sense where it's like, God, you really got to get the team going a little extra this week if you're the Ticats, right? Because it's like, listen, we know they're hurt. We know they don't have a lot of guys. We just have to make sure that we're coming in and playing as hard as we can and not taking this game lightly, because they do have those weapons. And that's a hard conversation to have in the locker room, isn't it? To try to get people out of that mind where it's, don't take this team easy. This is still professional football, and anybody can win and anybody can make a play at any given time.
But Mike, I think this is the one time when you can look back and say getting mopped for 8 weeks to start the season is to your benefit, because it could be a trap game if you were walking all over everybody.
Yeah.
But the Ticats have fought and scratched and clawed for everything that they have earned this season. Yeah. Nothing was given to them for free. And for that reason, I think that they have got the ultimate hedge against the trap game, which is a chip on the shoulder. When you have something to prove, you don't even care if they turn the shot clock on. You don't care if they're keeping score. Whoever they put in front of you, you got to show that person, hey, anything you heard about me or what you thought you knew about me, I'm about to show you. And that's the mentality that these Ticats are coming to this game with. They are out for revenge. This is going to be a hit streak. I'm expecting physical football. There will be people taken off of the field with bumps and bruises, either by somebody else or they're going to be walking it off on their own, because I do not expect the Ticats to slow down one bit. I'm excited to see the juice they play with, and with so much on the line for both these teams. Like, let's not get it twisted. If Ottawa was to beat the Ticats twice in a row, I mean, they would still have a chance at going to the playoffs.
Absolutely. And so, which is the scary part of it.
Right. So you have to acknowledge that fact. All the things they've gone through, coaching change, which can completely uproot a team. They've gone through terrible, heartbreaking, close losses. They still believe in that locker room. And so I think the Ticats are going to try and come out and just put that hope out as early as possible. Speaking of which, we talked about, RJ Harris. We talked about Shaq Johnson. We talked about Lorenzo Malden. All very exciting players to watch from just a pure fan perspective. Who are you watching in this game, or what players should the fans keep an eye out for in this one?
Yeah, and really before I get to that, what I do want to say is, this Friday is the last home game of the regular season, and it's also fan appreciation night. So make sure you enter the stadium before 6:30, and you will have a shot at a 2023 Grey Cup Festival package. That includes a pair of tickets to the Grey Cup game at Tim Hortons Field. Ticats and Redblacks this Friday night. The Made in Hammer game returns. Yeah, when you look at later today for this game, I'm really looking at a couple of these matchups. And, the one we mentioned it, Lorenzo Malden against both Tyrone Riley and Colin Kelly. Lorenzo Malden has the league-leading sacks right now. That O-line has only given up 3 sacks in the last 4 games, which is huge, right? Because, Courtney, we've talked about this at least earlier on in the season. These Ticats are trending in the right way to finish the season, right? So when I look at these matchups, that's who I'm really looking for. Is I'm looking for this Ticats O-line, like they have shut down some really good D lines leading up to this game. I'm looking for them to shut down a guy like Lorenzo Malden, who has been, like I said, leading the league in sacks. He's just, kind of a game wrecker for the Ottawa defense and one of those shining stars on that side. So that's kind of the matchup I'm going to look for. And I think if they can get control of him, then Dane's going to have a lot of time back there to find his weapons.
Yeah, and Lorenzo Malden was a guy who I think when Sean Burke went over to Ottawa, he had to be one of the key guys that he knew he could build around. And he did show a bright spot that Ottawa team really needed a spark. There's not too many things you could hang your hat on aside from the fact that Lorenzo Malden was going to cause havoc every time he was on the field. So it's one of those ones where you just got to respect it, man. He gets it done. He has a very high motor, and you can bet that the offensive line coach for the Ticats, Coach Gibson's been talking about him on the scouting report all week long. I expect to see Don Jackson coming off the edge, give a little chip block as he exits the backfield, just to make it a little bit easier and take some of the edge off of that pass rush. But it will be by committee. You can't stop a guy like that for the entire game. You're going to have to put a game plan in place and make sure you stick to it, because, man, Richie Hall does a good job over there, and they're pros too. Like you said, on any given day, anybody can win. And for me, I think when you look at a game like this where it doesn't necessarily end up in a blowout, because like we said, the Ticats are not averaging a ton of points on offense. And what that means is that this could be a very close game, even if the Ticats are outplaying the Redblacks in all 3 phases, because all it takes is one blunder here, one slip there, and, it could still be a 3, 7, 10-point game in the fourth quarter, even if these teams on paper don't really match up to be neck and neck. And I think that's when Lewis Ward and Seth Small are going to come into this one. Because if you do get possessions in enemy territory within the 50-yard line towards the goal line, I think that you've got to make those count for points. Like, you've got to be able to get that one extra first down that gets you into field goal range and then come away with at least 3 points. In a lot of the Ticats victories, there have been field goals in those games, multiple field goals in those games, and they might not be in the fourth quarter with the clock winding down. It might be, in the first quarter, because that's the time when you've had the wind at your back and you've been able to drive, but just not having empty possessions. I think that's a big key for the Ticats in this one, is getting points every chance you get close enough to that end zone and making sure you don't come away with zeros. The Ticats, they've had some struggles in the second half of games this year, but aside from field goals, aside from stopping that killer pass rush, is there any other main things, maybe finishing the games or another theme? What are some of the key themes that you think would be game breaker or decision makers in this one?
Well, and just to reiterate what you're saying, because to have field goal kickers like Lewis Ward, who's been one of the top field goal kickers in the CFL for the past couple of years, right? And then Seth Small, the way he's playing, what you tend to notice with a lot of these offenses that have those good field goal kickers is they get themselves into field goal range. So before the game, they'll figure out what that field goal range is based off the wind, how the kicker's kicking the ball that day. So they'll have this certain yardage that they know, okay, we're pretty confident that our kicker can make, 80, 90% of his kicks from the spot. So once we get here, that's when we'll start taking these shots to the end zone, right? And that's what you see the Ticats do a lot. A lot of teams, that's kind of their philosophy. Once they get into field goal range, they're trying to get that touchdown quick, right? Take those big shots, get those explosive plays. And I think you're absolutely right. When you look at these teams, that's going to really matter depending on how that field goal kick, how they're hitting those field goals early, right? Because then that just gives that offensive coordinator, Tommy for the Ticats, a little bit of confidence to be able to take that shot to the end zone and hopefully put up those big time points. Honestly, I'm going to...
Hey, but wait. Hold on. Like, speaking about kickers, I just want to put this out there. Ticats fans, enter for a chance to win 4 tickets to this Sunday's Forge FC semifinal match at Tim Hortons Field, plus a pre-match meet and greet with Ticats players at the Forge FC match. Go to ticats.ca/Forge contest to enter. You could win 4 club level tickets to Sunday's match and an exclusive meet and greet with Tunde Adeleke, Malik Carney, Mason Bennett, Lawrence Woods III. The contest closes at midnight tonight, Friday, the 21st of October. So go to ticats.ca/Forge contest to enter now. Go meet those sack machines and those big playmakers from the Ticats. I'm sorry, we're talking about field goals. It made me think soccer. What were you about to say, Mike? You're talking about strategy. You're talking about winning the game.
Let me tell you this one strategy that I ended up reading, kind of this week while prepping for this game. And Court, this is gonna blow your mind, but maybe a strategy for the Ticats is every game that they have led in the first quarter, so they've had any sort of lead, they have not won. After the past few games that they've won, 5 of the last 6 that they've won, they have not had the lead in the first quarter. So is that a strategy? I don't know, because obviously you always want to lead, right? And obviously you always want to lead, but when it's that telling, I mean, do you talk about it in the coach's room?
This reminds me of the 9th grade when I ran cross country. The first time I ran that race, because I was, sprinter, DB,
out of there.
I was out there, out the gate. Boom. First 100 meters, gone. And then by that first kilometer, I was dying, wheezing in the back of the pack. That's what you're basically telling me the Ticats do, is that they run out of juice before the end of the race, and they need to come out pacing themselves like the marathon runners they need to be to win this battle. Is that what you're saying?
No, that's not what I'm saying at all. I want them to come out there and put up 50 points a quarter. But when you see things like that, you start to wonder, like, maybe they should come out and pace themselves. But no, obviously not. But when I read that, it was like, oh my gosh, this is absolutely insane. Because from what we remember, it was always that, that point differential from the first half to the second half at the beginning of the season. But now it's almost completely flipped. And they're doing so well, you know what I mean? End up coming up. What I do want to end up bringing up, though, because, you and I have both been in this situation, and it's a situation that Ottawa's in right now. When your coach gets let go during the season, right, and you get a new interim head coach, do you feel like that would help a team like Ottawa in this final push to get? I know it didn't help them with Montreal last week, but does it give that team a little more juice, or is it more of like we're kind of down on ourselves and it's not going very well?
When you get a coaching change, I think that it is psychologically a fresh slate. And it's almost like you get a chance to draw the line in the sand and say, once we step over this line, it's a new day, and nothing that has happened before matters. Like, we are stepping in to our future. So leave your baggage and let's move forward. And I think that's what you're able to do with the coaching change, because it's such a huge shift. And also those things take time, right? Like, the culture of the team is built from the top down. And so it might not be the first week or the first 2 weeks when that coaching change really starts to permeate the locker room and the way that people do things and just the cadence of preparation and whatnot. But when the switch does flip, there can be a huge shift. Because, I mean, we experienced something like that on the team when there was a coaching change mid-season and the team had started like 0-8, and then we went on a little bit of a run, and it was two different teams. It was like night and day. Mm-hmm. So that absolutely can happen. But for the Ticats, you wanna snuff that out real quick, because damn it, not on my watch. That's what, if I'm Coach O, that's what I'm telling them. Like, hey, they think they got hope. Well, you better go out there on the first play and you better bust the wedge, celebrate as a group, and let them know that they still are the Ottawa Redblacks. And I mean, it is very psychological thing, right? It's tough to shake off a trend when it's going in the wrong direction. But when you're in the hole, they say the first thing to do is stop digging, and maybe that's what Ottawa thinks they did. I mean, Montreal had a coaching change this year as well, mm-hmm. and I guess that one worked out for them, but you can't really say because the sample size before the coaching change really wasn't that big. Mm-hmm. But as the standings go right now, they're ahead of the Ticats, so what really can you say? I think it's just one of those things that remains to be seen, and it is great. What's your take on the coaching change?
Yeah, I think, from my experiences, that's exactly it. It is this reboot of energy, because you get into this mode where, we were talking about with Saskatchewan last week, where you get in this mode where also one thing will go wrong in a game, and when you're losing games and things aren't going right, you get down on yourself quick, and then that's when other teams are able to take advantage of you and just pile up the score. Once you get that coaching change, you're exactly right. It's a fresh slate. So now there's going to be this newfound energy trying to prove yourself to somebody else, right? Trying to get that new identity back. But what doesn't help the Ottawa Redblacks coming to this game is all those guys that are going to be trying to find that new identity being hurt on the 1 game or the 6 game, right? So really what I'm looking for in this game, is Dane to come out and just do what he's been doing. Like, that offense to come out, run the ball, make the smart plays, just move the chains a little bit, and then trust that defense that is, like we were talking about, a cohesive group right now and playing very, very well. Trust that defense to make some plays, and Lawrence Woods to take a few back to the house. But in terms of, kind of final thoughts on this game for yourself, what are you looking for when you flip this game on tonight?
I really want to see that one really big explosive play that changes the tide. I think there's potential for this one to kind of, be a normal game for a little while, just kind of like the water is warming up, and then I think it hits a boiling point. I don't know if that's a punt return explosion for, 40, 50, 60 yards. I don't know if it's one of those signature Tim White 60-yard receptions, or if it's like a Malik Carney sack fumble like what we've seen him do. But there's going to come a time when the momentum shifts, and I think the key to this game is when the momentum shifts, do the Ticats allow it to shift back? That is going to be the key. Can they grab the reins and hold on to them? Like you said, they've led, but they haven't necessarily been able to hold leads, but they've also been on the other side of it where they've come back from deficits to win. And so, they say basketball is a game of runs. I think football is a game of possessions. If you can make those possessions count and maybe find a bonus one here or there, that's what I'm going to be looking for. How about you?
Yeah, I think you're right with that. I think, something I'm looking for as well is just that consistency of the Ticats kind of grinding out. They've been able to grind out these wins and kind of win ugly. No win is really ugly, but when you're able to grind out these wins and find a way, I think that's exactly what I'm going to be looking for with these Ticats is, if the special teams isn't doing well, are the offense and the defensive side of the ball picking them up, right? When the offense stalls, because, every offense is going to have these down times where it might be a 2-and-out or a 4-and-out, right, where they get 4 plays and have to punt. Is the defense picking them up and not letting Ottawa get a couple first downs and flipping the field? That's kind of the flow of the game that I'm going to be watching, because, like you said, it's one of those games where you're not really sure what kind of Ottawa team you're going to get when they come out, and you've just won 2 close games as the Ticats that I think you just got to take control of this game, slow burn until you can finally put them away and get yourself into that playoffs, because there's got to be maximum focus going into this game, because you definitely don't want to have to rely on somebody else winning or losing games for you to be able to get into the playoffs.
And that's it. This is going to be a battle for the playoffs. Make no mistake, the Ticats need to win. They don't want to leave it to the last week of the year. They want to win tonight, and then they will be watching to see what happens when Calgary plays against Saskatchewan. This one's going down at Tim Hortons Field, and if you can't be there, you're going to listen on the Ticats audio network. And hey, Ticats fans, be sure to listen for the Sandman Hotel code word during the game this evening. For the Sandman Hotel's Listen to Win contest, enter on ticats.ca/Sandman for your chance to win 2 free nights at any Sandman Hotel in Canada just for listening on the Ticats audio network. So that's it for Tiger Cats Game Day. As always, we appreciate you tuning in. My name is Courtney Stephen. He's Mike Daly. We hope you have a great game day.
It's game day and you're ready. So are we. Let us know your thoughts. Email us at gameday@ticats.ca. Courtney Stephen and Mike Daly are here every game day with their insights into today's game. Subscribe to the Ticats Audio Network on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts.